Hello and welcome to the Destination Experience Summit. My name is Miguel Neves and I'm the editor-in-chief of Skift Meetings. And I'm delighted to be your host today, along with the entire Skift Meetings team in the background. I'll also be joined by my colleagues, Andrea Doyle, executive editor at Skift Meetings, and Angela Tupper, our branded content editor, who will also be moderating sessions throughout the event. Today, we're exploring the incredible potential that destinations have to host extraordinary experiences and unforgettable meetings. We know that destinations are an essential part of an event for planners seeking to create unique and compelling meeting experiences. Selecting the right destination is a minefield, but when done well, it is the start of a beautiful journey. Managing the journey, the destination experience journey, is another big component of event planning, as you know very well. Today, by looking at the latest trends, best practices, and success stories in areas such as innovation, sustainability, diversity, and inclusion, we're hoping to inspire and empower you to revolutionize your own planning approaches. Thanks for joining us for what I know will be an engaging and enlightening 2-hour journey into the world of destination experiences. A little bit of housekeeping. We're on the Stova platform for this event, Skift's event tech partner, and a few things to be mindful. Do jump in the chat where you can add your comments. And if you want to let us know where you're watching us, where you're joining the session today, then add that in the chat. Let us know where in the world you are right now. It's always fun to see where in the world everybody is. So make sure you do that now. And then there's the Q&A section, which is for you to ask questions. And we'll answer as many questions as we can live. We'll ask the speakers those questions. And of course, we'll capture those as well and share them with the speakers later so we can do follow-up stories on the great content that we have today. I'll call out a few people. We have Chicago, Madrid in the house, South Carolina, UK, Virginia, Anna Marie Marquez in Madrid, Spain. We have Davenport, Croatia. We're going all over the world today. Another person from Croatia, St. Louis, Vegas. Hi, Greg, who is in Vegas, Savannah, Georgia, Halifax, Nova Scotia. We have a nice spread of people from all around the world. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully we'll make the best of these 2 hours together. And of course, don't be shy. Add your comments and of course, ask your questions of the speakers. It's all about having the most amount of interaction that we can today. All right, so let's jump into some of the content. I'm going to share a few slides very quickly. This is the Destination Experience Summit. You've come to the right place. I want to first of all thank our sponsors, Visit Detroit, Visit Seattle, and our event tech partner, Stova. Without them, there would be no events like this at no cost to you. So please do join me in thanking them. And on the Skift Meetings side, I want to make sure that you know about all the great content that we create. We have a meetings newsletter, the Stand Up, that we launch twice weekly. And I would definitely recommend you sign up for that. There is a QR code, and we'll add some links in the chat as well for you to follow that. We also launch reports. We just recently launched the latest 5 trends for life sciences, conventions, meetings, and events. We also have the What's New in Meetings and Incentive Travel 2024 that we launched in partnership with IMEX recently. All these reports are free to download, so I highly recommend that you take a look and download your copy today. We also have the Skift Meetings Awards, which are in their 2nd year. If you represent a destination, a venue, technology, a hotel chain, really almost any type of product and service in the meetings industry, I encourage you to enter the Skift Meetings Awards. The final deadline for the awards is June the 11th. So we're not that far away from the deadline for submissions. We already have some great submissions, but there is always an opportunity for more. So make sure you, if you are on the supplier side of the industry, then do consider applying and submitting. And lastly, I just want to mention our Skift Meetings Forum, which is also being run for the 2nd time ever. This is a full day in-person event that is gathering top-tier business event professionals in New York City on September the 17th. It is all about connecting with like-minded peers, learning from experts, and delving into insightful discussions on today's hot topics. If you can, do consider joining us. It's going to be a fantastic event. You don't want to miss that one. And that's it. So let's get started with today's event at Destination Experience Summit 2024.
Please welcome Catherine Chollet, President and CEO at Global DMC Partners, and Rutger Horn, Vice President, Global Sales and Strategic Partnership at Ovation Global DMC, in conversation with Miguel Neves, Editor-in-Chief at Skift Meetings.
Welcome, Catherine and Rutger. Thank you for joining me today, or joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miguel.
So no one understands the ins and outs of destination selection better than you two, I think, or you are great examples of people that really understand this very deeply. You're leading DNC consortiums. You receive daily requests for destinations all across the globe, and you're both experts in destination selection. So I've invited you to join us and share a little bit of how you help clients make those tough decisions and how you manage those destinations or help manage those destinations with clients. So let's jump in. I mean, we're talking about trends today, and I think we were all just at IMEX in Frankfurt last week. It was a busy week. I'm sure you'll agree. I see some nodding, pretty intense. But still, it is interesting to understand what is happening right now. I think it's safe to say that business is back. I think you'll agree, compared to the low times that we had during and right after the COVID pandemic. But there's also last minute things. There's a lot of requests. There's a lot of people really trying to cope with what's going on. And I'll start with Catherine. I think you've shared a little bit of kind of the craziness that you're living in right now, but maybe if you give me a first person perspective of what it looks like right now. What does the destination world look like right now?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. All that Skiff organizes is always so absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much for allowing us to be on this session. So yes, destination right now selection is particularly interesting, intriguing for a number of reasons. First of all, the last minute element of our business is still extremely high. We see the majority of the requests coming, regardless of the size, between 3 and 6 months. So that creates all kinds of opportunities, but a lot of challenges as well. And budgets implication, the fact that inflation for our industry has grown a lot, but budgets haven't grown. If anything, they've stayed the same or slightly increases. So that creates some interesting challenges for meeting planners. So all this combined, the world being also interesting. Lots of markets have opened, but some markets are obviously closed. So the playing field is a little different. So that gives opportunities for some destinations, and unfortunately have shut down some destinations as well. So yes, we are very busy in helping clients find the ideal destinations for their programs.
Rutger, I'm guessing you'll agree, but how are you really coping with this? Because it sounds like the perfect storm in a way. You have less or similar budgets, you have very tight deadlines, you have a lot of overworked people. And last week I heard a statistic from Cvent that I thought was quite surprising, which was 2/3 of all Cvent users on the destination side are new. So we have a lot of new people in the industry on both sides of the industry. How are you coping, Rutger?
I think the last point that you're making, Miguel, is pretty key in our industry right now. We are seeing everything that Catherine is seeing as well. That's all over the industry. At the same time, we, like Catherine as well, we've coped with the fact that we had to hire new people, we had to find new people, but our biggest challenge at this moment is very much the training of the new people, right? We lost so much seniority in our teams on a global level that the training is now pretty key in all of our destinations as well. The funny thing is that pre-pandemic, where corporate teams were very much looking for destinations and with full corporate teams in hand, of course, the pandemic didn't help. We saw a large increase of agencies in need or helping the corporate clients out for that in terms of agency requests coming up. Now we see agency requests coming down a little bit and corporate requests coming up again. So there's the shift, as you see, post-pandemic, looking for destinations, looking on how to search them and who is searching them. Is one of our key topics that we had also during our global meeting in Frankfurt too. It's exciting times. It's a moving target, and we're just moving ahead with it and trying to shape those trends at the same time.
So going back to pre-pandemic, what we maybe consider as the normal, or we used to consider as the normal, right? And we talk about this new normal, and I'd like to understand, maybe start with you, Catherine. what is really different in the process that you go through in destination selection now compared to what it was before the pandemic?
There are a number of elements that are new, but I'm going to focus on some that I think are maybe very, to some extent, surprising still. So we used to, for instance, look at hotel selections, venue selections based on occupancy. But because of the staffing challenges today, this is not necessarily the right metrics to look at. We're seeing some wonderful venues, some wonderful properties that are not available, not because of occupancy situation, but actually because of staffing challenges. So that means we need to not only have a bigger portfolio of solutions in different destinations, but also make sure that the clients understand that they need to act very, very quickly. We're also seeing a lot less negotiation to some extent, because there is no room for negotiations in many instances. So again, clients need to agree to some venues pretty quickly and not necessarily push back too much on some terms and conditions because they simply might not have the opportunity anymore.
It sounds like you're describing very much a seller's market. Is that still the case?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Rutger, you raised your hands there. You're seeing
No,
exactly
I mean, it's clearly still a seller's market, up to the frustration of a lot of planners still, because there's still the demand is very high, and as we see, as Catherine mentioned as well, on the hotel side, for example, on the venue side, where we still see the preference for some bigger hotels moving towards leisure is still higher, moved towards the MICE and the group business.
Yeah.
So there is that challenge as well. The negotiation part, as Catherine mentioned too, it is still a seller's market. The hotels feel very strongly about their budgets and about what is it worth. Even though they're asking in some parts of the world crazy prices still, and planners are not happy with the way that it's being budgeted and the way it's being contracted. I think this is moving as well, and it's moving down a little bit, but for planners not too fast enough.
Okay. And where do you see this kind of going? Because is it moving down? You're going to see a buyer's market, or is it just going to go back up again when things kind of stabilize a little bit? Maybe start with you, Rutger.
It's an interesting question. Pre-pandemic, it was definitely a buyer's market. Everybody wanted to have the right clients at the right moment, at the right time, really pulling them towards their properties or towards their destinations. It is very much a seller's market now. I see it going down a little bit. I don't necessarily see it going back to a buyer's market very soon. The why is last week we finally operated our final pandemic postponed event. That was last week. So, the requests are still there. Everybody wants to go back. I see changes that will come at some point as well, which is more related to sustainability and where will people be able to travel and those kind of things. And that will have an impact on the buyers versus seller market as well. But I don't see that change within now and a year, for sure not.
Catherine, you agree?
I agree. Short term, I see it still very much a seller's market. That being said, I feel that hotels are feeling the pain of the meeting planners and are also looking at long term. So there are a lot of intelligent discussions going on to try and accommodate and find solutions. So there's a desire to balance things out a little bit more. But I find the biggest challenge actually is not necessarily at the hotel level or at the venues level. I find that especially with corporations, but also with third party, it's the getting the approval from the higher ups to sign on those deals, etc. That is the biggest challenge for meeting planners. They find options, they find great opportunities, but they just can't get those contracts signed fast enough or justify the cost easily enough. They have to educate their higher ups constantly. That I don't see changing, and I wish it would, because it puts so much pressure on meeting planners.
And why do you think that is? Is that a question of the higher ups are different. There are different people making decisions, and therefore they're not used to it. The timeframes are much shorter. Why is that such a barrier?
So I think it's for a couple of reasons. I think budgets are certainly being tighter, tightly managed for sure. But I also think that a lot of the higher ups see inflation in a very clean way. It's up 10%, 20%. The reality is inflation in our industry is a lot higher than that. The average inflation for F&B, for AV, for airlines, etc., is closer to 30%. The majority of the budgets, if they have increased 5-10% at max. So there's a discrepancy between the expectations of the higher ups in terms of budget and what is possible, and the reality of what meeting planners need to deal with.
Yeah, I'm quickly adding on to that. I think we all were expecting an economic downturn.
Yeah.
Inflation was up, yes, but we're all expecting it. So I think the expectation of the economic downturn that did not happen is still lingering in the background for some reason, geopolitical, what have you, that people are still keeping their hand on their pockets, on their wallets. They don't want to step in too fast. They don't want to go in too fast and organize big budget meetings or big budget events.
And to this, Rutger, because you're so right, when we look at some of the verticals we work with, there are some massive layoffs going on. So Rutger is absolutely right. Keeping a close, tightness to the budget is essential for corporations, for their P&L in general, for sure.
For sure. So we have a couple of minutes left. I want to launch a request of our attendees. Where was the last place that you had held an event, or the last contract that you signed? I'd like to hear about your destination selections. Where was the last kind of destination selection that you made? Just add that in the chat so we can see that coming through. And now, if you will allow, I'd like to jump into AI, because in the preparation for this session, we talked about not discussing AI, and then we discussed a lot of AI. So I'd like to just mention that. And I remember you saying something like, people are requesting something that I can't find on ChatGPT. What does that mean in practice? People are using ChatGPT to try to find the right venues, destinations, and where does that DMC role come in? Are we going to see a chat DMC soon? How does that work?
I did mention that. I did get the request from a planner saying that they need the wow effect, but the last point was I don't want to find it on ChatGPT. Now, this is something that I saw for the first time a few weeks ago, but I didn't want to mention it because essentially, and I did the research myself, I went to specific destinations that I know well, where we have offices, and I typed in, I need a transportation partner for a meeting of 50 people going from A to B, who would be my successful and most experienced transportation partner in that destination. The trusted partner we use was not in that list. Made me happy, but how long will it take before that trusted partner is in that list, right? And that's the details that we're talking about now. No, ChatGPT will not change the DMC in terms of the relationship with people, how we interact, the way we interact, how we provide these experiences, because it is a people's business, it's people related. But finding the right information, even though the trusted relationships are there, is going to get easier and easier and easier. We've gone through the internet stage. We've gone through sourcing agencies. The DMC has lost quite a lot of business because of all of these technological improvements, right? Will it get worse because of ChatGPT, because of AI-generated content? I think it will impact, but the people side will not change. But with what are we left with to do with it? What are we going to do in the end as a DMC with what we're left to do with? So that's a little bit my question. Yes, it's lingering. There's a question mark. I'd love to get Catherine's opinion about this, because I think just curious.
Quick take on that, Catherine.
Well, Miguel, first of all, you created a monster. You did a brilliant article a number of weeks ago and created an entire program through ChatGPT. It was amazing to see the level of information you could get from it. And I feel similarly to Rutger. Yes, AI and ChatGPT and others, Apple is bringing their solution as well, is definitely going to impact us. But ultimately, what we do in the meetings and events business is about the people. It's not just knowing where to go, the venue, the ground transportation. It's knowing the people within these companies that are going to manage your programs. And as a DMC, even at the hotel level, we know which person we want to be managing the client's program. Same with the chauffeurs, same with the creativity, the caterers, etc. And I think if anything, especially in a world that is extremely techy, the face-to-face. For instance, we were all thinking that hybrid was going to be the solution for everything, that virtual was going to replace so much of the face-to-face. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing a thirst, an appetite for face-to-face. Same thing with the DMC. It's the people connection. It's the uniqueness that of an experience that you can have in the market, the access to the people that I think makes the difference. So I am cautiously optimistic. Yeah, that's I think is the word.
Great to hear. If you'll allow me to summarize, I think what I'm hearing is that information isn't enough. ChatGPT might give you information, but you really want that personal experience, and you want the people that you can trust to really put on the event.
And that can deliver on site and address any issue that generally tends to happen.
And when you need a favor, Miguel, because something is wrong at your event, you need that relationship between the venue owner, the DMC, and everybody else. ChatGPT cannot solve that for you.
I can't put a good word in with OpenAI to get a favor from ChatGPT.
You can try. You can try.
Try.
But work with Rutger and I. You'll be better.
You'll be
great
better.
message. Catherine, Rutger, thank you so much for joining us today. Just want to shout out the different destinations that we had here in the list. Scottsdale, Morhaba in Neom, Madison, Wisconsin, Puerto Rico, Punta de Mita, Mexico, and Pueblo Bonito, Sunset Beach in Mexico. So a lot of love for Mexico right now.
Neom as well.
Yes, love. Perfect.
Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you, Miguel.
Next session, we are heading to Detroit, a very unusual destination that we're going to learn a little bit more about. So stay with us.
Please welcome Andrea Cadoto, Director of Sales at Visit Detroit, in conversation with Angela Tupper, Branded Content Editor at Skiff Meetings.
Hi, everyone. I'm here today with Andrea Cadoto, Director of Sales for Visit Detroit. She's here to tell us about the new tech revolution and what it means for meetings and events. Thank you for joining us today, Andrea.
Well, thank you, Angela. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, very excited to talk about Detroit. I love that. It's a passion of mine. And when we talk about technology, as a destination, Detroit has been a center of technological advancement for more than 120 years. I think everyone is very familiar with the automobile when it relates to Detroit. And we know that it was invented in Germany in the 1880s, but Detroit was really responsible for changing the automobile and the way it was designed, manufactured, and sold. And those advancements really continued. People are always shocked to learn that there's a couple of firsts that you see every day. The first paved road, the first stop sign, the first tricolored traffic light, and probably one that everyone's not as familiar with, but the first charged road for electric vehicles. So new and exciting for us. That first quarter-mile stretch has been placed in front of Michigan Central Station. And so Ford is really responsible for a very large $960 million renovation of, it's a lot of money, of the city's most iconic railway station. As many have seen probably in years past, it's been photographed more times than we would have liked back in the day, but they've breathed new life into it. And it's going to be a mixed use complex that's going to target the most challenging technological issues known to man right now. And we're very excited that it's going to be reopening on June 6th with a 10-day community event. And so yeah, it is. We're very excited. So investment in technology has just been tremendously robust here in the Metro Detroit region. For those who don't know, we do represent a tri-county area, which is known as Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. And amongst numerous developments, I believe there's about 18 projects in the works when it comes to technology locations. But we have about 5 emerging mobility companies that are opening here. And probably the largest is GM's new electric vehicle and battery center in Orion Township. And, you know, when you have all of this thriving industry in the area, it spills over into all elements. In fact, more development, which is occurring, which is the Hudson site. For those of you that are old enough to have shopped at Hudson's department stores, Detroit had a very large footprint store in our community for a long time. And it will now be home to the second tallest building in the Detroit region, housing the brand new Edition Hotel, as well as event space, luxury retail. So yeah, it is no longer about dates, rates, and space in cities. It's really about your infrastructure and economic base that allows you to support events.
Right. As you said, that spillover effect has such a huge impact. And where there's industry, there's money and jobs, of course.
Yes.
What sort of intellectual capital is all of this development fostering?
Yeah, I think the intellectual capital has been fostered in the Metro Detroit region. We are very proud that Michigan is home to the highest number of mechanical engineers and the highest number of industrial engineers. And this really resonates from the investment from the state level to the city. We have excellent partnerships with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, all the way down to our Detroit Economic Development Corporation. And what that means is we've taken a very strategic approach to looking at the industries that our state are targeting based on the resources that are here. And why that really connects is because now that allows us to showcase that we have an amazing attendee base, an audience built in for these. And then it helps with speakers, panelists, specialists, and we cannot forget the most important, those sponsorship opportunities.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's hugely helpful for meeting planners to be able to leverage that kind of network and such a high concentration of engineers and other experts.
Yes.
What are some of the top conferences happening in around the city amidst all of this local energy?
Well, we have been very fortunate to house one of the most notable, and that is the North American Battery Show. It's the largest advanced battery electric hybrid vehicle show. It has, I always like to say, it has really grown up in Detroit through collaboration with Informa Markets. They in our Novi area and have expanded and will now be moving into our downtown area. The other is the Association for Advancing Automation, which is Automate, the largest robotics and automation event. And newest to the roster is called Move America, and that is the #1 tech mobility in America. We have a vast list that is soon to be announced. So look forward to that. And then we're very fortunate to have a robust lead funnel that we are working on for those that are looking to make Detroit their home.
Amazing. There's just so many great examples there. And as you said, there are many more that you're not sharing with us today. And
Soon.
Yeah, with just those few highlight events, you can really see how Detroit is at the intersection of all of these connected industries. Is the city doing anything with its meetings infrastructure to keep up with this demand?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, represent a tri-county area, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County, which is a very large footprint. So that allows us to have over 40,000 hotel rooms in our region, 2 world-class convention centers. Huntington Place is the 16th largest convention center with 2.4 million square feet and a very, very robust Wi-Fi system. It can house over 30,000 users, free. We like to share that for free. So when it comes to technology, you can also pipe in 10 gigabytes, which is great. And then, of course, we have Suburban Collection Showplace, which is located in Novi, Michigan, which is in Oakland County. And with over 500,000 square feet, it is an amazing facility. And it is in the heart of the original equipment manufacturers hub and many, many tech and mobility facilities. In addition to that, I think probably the biggest question that people always have is the hotel package. And we've been very fortunate to continue to grow the development in the region. We've just opened a beautiful Cambria hotel, the Godfrey Hotel, not to mention the Addition, but probably the one that is most exciting and that we're most anticipating is the announcement of the hotel that will be attached to Huntington Place Convention Center and due to open in early 2027. So stay tuned for those details as well.
That's really exciting, all these new hotel developments. And I believe the tallest hotel in North America is in Detroit, right?
That is correct. It's the Detroit Marriott at the Renaissance Center, and it is stunning. It overlooks the Detroit River. It looks across to Canada, which there's your trivia question if you're ever on Jeopardy. What country do you look south to? It's Canada. So yes, thank you.
Two trivia elements there. The tallest hotel in North America, and you get to look south to Canada.
You do. People are always very surprised by that. Yes.
Has all of this capital that is flowing into the city had a spillover effect in other areas? What about the local arts and culture scene, for example?
Oh, yes. We would need a whole nother session to talk about our arts and culture scene. I think everyone is very familiar with the fact that we are home to Motown. You can't think about Detroit without thinking about Motown, but are always very surprised to hear that techno and funk were born in the city. And, we have beautiful, iconic venues that are great for live music, concerts, both indoor and outdoor, and festivals are something that run rampant in all of our communities that are really about the culture of our area, which is extremely diverse. And what people might not resonate Detroit with a little bit is our rich architectural legacy and our outstanding art collections that can be found in the Detroit Institute of Arts, as well as the Henry Ford Museum of Innovation, both top tier #1 attractions, not only in Michigan, but in the US. And all of this beauty led to Detroit being the first UNESCO City of Design in the United States and only one of 43. So another first for us.
Amazing. Yeah. I love how you've drawn that through line from the city's original Motown heyday and all the Art Deco architecture that grew out of that boom. And now all the way to the legacy that continues today with this thriving arts and culture scene.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that techno was founded in Detroit.
Yes.
Another piece of trivia.
Right. Yes.
So speaking of surprises, I want you to imagine now that there's a meeting planner in the audience who's not been to Detroit in over a decade. What would surprise them most about the city today?
I would say that it is not the city you are accustomed to. And I think it really boils down to the people, the vibe, the authenticity, if I can say that word. And most people are always very surprised at how clean the city is. I think it's beautiful. It's stunning. And that is not just our downtown. We have beautiful suburban areas that are both, oh gosh, just indoor, outdoor. We have beautiful, beautiful cities. I love it. And I would say that the city has a lot of layers. So I think you have to really come with an open mind and really see Detroit through a new lens. And you're probably going to need more than one visit because it's going to be a lot to take all in. I think when you decide to meet in Detroit, you get to meet Detroit.
Right. I love that.
Thank you.
It's not just about meeting other people, but meeting the city. How can Visit Detroit help facilitate connections to the city's full business network and local expertise on the ground?
Excellent question. Detroit is certainly a conduit to hotels, venues, attractions. That is by far the core of what we do. But what we've really probably looked at a little bit further is collaborating with all of our stakeholders and partners in the area. We feel it's super important to bring the appropriate stakeholders to the table that help enhance your event. That, it's not unusual for us to bring in individuals from different organizations to brainstorm how can we really make a difference in this event, and why is this event important to your audience and to the region.
Absolutely. And what about, you mentioned earlier that Detroit has the highest concentration of engineers, all of that intellectual capital. How can Visit Detroit help to introduce meeting planners to some of those resources, or perhaps actually market to them as that sort of
absolutely
being attendee base there?
Oh, you're getting in of like making it actually happen. We have excellent partnerships with specific industry organizations like the Engineering Society of Detroit, Mish Auto, the Medical Main Street, as well as we cannot forget our supporters at all of our chambers, the Economic Development Councils and the MEDC. We can't be successful in our region if we don't have thriving industry. And so why not call upon these experts who they are equally invested in ensuring that we have a thriving community and to show off the assets that we have.
Right. And I mean, all of those events that you are hosting this year and in the coming years,
Yes.
I'm sure that they're already attracting a huge attendee base and selling out. Otherwise, people wouldn't keep choosing Detroit.
Agreed. I would like to say that we have seen growth in many of our events. And of course, that is a huge attribute to the event planners and organizers, because we know that the real lift comes on your end, but we do our very best to make sure that we're supporting you. And I think Detroit is in a really unique space now where we can be strategic about the business that we partner with and collaborate with. And we truly try to find partnerships where it's not just about, coming to the city, but really leaving a piece of you behind. And there's a whole nother conversation we could have about community engagement and all of the aspects of that as well. So like I mentioned, many layers in Detroit.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing so much about Detroit with us.
It was my pleasure.
Your pride,
My pleasure.
your
Yes.
pride really shows through in everything you say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we're going to be talking about alternatives to destination boycotts. This is a topic that never fails to engage the audience, and you don't want to miss it.
Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
Please welcome Elena Gisterman, co-founder and CEO at Social Offset, and Rhonda Payne, founder and CEO at Flock Theory, in conversation with Miguel Neves, editor-in-chief at Skiff Meetings.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session, the socially conscious alternative to event and destination boycotts. I am delighted to be joined at this session by Elena Gisterman, the co-founder of Social Offset, and Rhonda Payne, the CEO of Flock Theory, also a board member of Social Offset. Welcome to this session.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us, and great to see everybody at Destination Experience Summit. It's great.
Hi, everyone.
Everybody. So I want to first off start by defining this idea of destination boycotts, because we talk a lot about it, but I think we want to make sure we understand what that means. And also, there was a moment in time, I think, with a lot of laws that came into place, and so there was this kind of rush, and boycotting became kind of a big topic. But I also want to kind of understand where we stand right now. And I wanted to start with Elena. If you could give your perspective, I know you're also the executive director of Informs, a large association. I know you don't want to speak on behalf of Informs necessarily, but just as an association, when you're looking at destinations, what does that mean when you're considering boycotts, not considering boycotts? How do you have that conversation at an association level?
I mean, if you told me I had to answer that in one word, Miguel, I would just say messy. It's just messy out there. And, things happen all the time within laws and in terms of just what's happening in the world. So, most associations, including Informs, we really value that in-person activity. So when things happen in states, whether it's because of the law or just because of the culture of the state or the city, it really just wreaks havoc with what we're trying to do, which is bringing people together to have thought discussions and really bring people together to talk about innovative ideas and collaboration and all that. So most organizations are not endorsing true boycotts in terms of coming up. There are some organizations that say, okay, here are the cities that we won't go to or the states we won't go to. But what I'm finding is that more associations, including what's happening, you know, you could call them a silent boycott, is in the meetings planning department saying, you know what, let's not ruffle any feathers. Let's just not even put these cities on the table, which, you know, kind of silent boycott, but the board of directors sometimes are getting involved and they're asking for certain places to be taken off the table, which is just messy. And the one concern that I have as someone who believes in in-person events, so does the entire Social Offset board of directors, is that we don't want folks to boycott locations. We don't think they're that effective. The second thing, and we have research to show they're not effective, is that we don't want to make it such a headache and so messy that organizations are like, you know what, we're going to go virtual. We did it during COVID. Let's stop traveling. And we don't think that's good for the science and the health of the society and what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Rhonda, you have the same experience. I know you're on the board of Social Offset, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but just wanted to get your take on this as well.
Yeah, you know, I think Elena put it really well. And for me, it often comes down to thinking about to what extent we can really assign the acts of a state to all of the people who reside within it, right? And that's just usually faulty logic. And I think that's where the work of Social Offset becomes so important. You know, Elena mentioned that in many cases, many of the event organizers that I know who are making, you know, site decisions are really feeling that pressure, that silent kind of pressure that might not be publicly touted by an organization, but their board of directors is really putting a lot of pressure on the staff team to essentially avoid certain states. And I know our destination partners are seeing that too in their numbers of inquiries and RFPs.
You know, I'll just add to that. I love what Rhonda, what you just said, and you used the term faulty logic. And that's sometimes what happens with destination boycotts. It's as if not going someplace is going to make a difference. It feels right to us as people because we want to do something. But we know certainly in the world that we live in the US right now is that it's not making a difference in the legislature. So it could be really hurting the very people many of us want to help. And that's where Social Offset, you know, we don't make money off of this. This is for the good of the world, is saying, you know what, how do we get money into the pockets through the local charities of people actually doing the good fight on the ground instead of keeping our ball and staying at home.
Makes sense. So Elena, if you could explain the essence of Social Offset, but I'd love you to tell the story of how it all started, and then you can tell us how it actually works at the moment.
Oh, Miguel, good question. I could talk for hours. So there's a long story that's on the website. I'll do the short story today for the audience. And that starts in July of 2022 when Beth Sermont, so Beth is my wife. She's a co-founder of Social Offset. She's a CMP. She's a fellow of ASAE. She's all that. And then some, she's my wife. I can be biased. We're driving in the car and we're talking about how for our job, she's a VP at 360 Live Media, how we have to travel to these places that don't align with our social values. We were about to go to Nashville for ASAE, and one of us, and we still don't know to this day who said it first, we came up with the term social offset. And we're like, that's like carbon offset. How do you offset visiting and paying tax dollars to places that we're going to that don't align with our values? So within a few weeks and countless emails to people like Rhonda and other folks on the board and other things, we came up with the minimum viable product using GoDaddy and all that. And we raised over $3,000 for Abortion Care of Tennessee. And we asked 3 cities to be part of us. And they loved the idea. And just talking to people, we had Jeff Tenenbaum do pro bono legal work for us. And within a few months after that, we were incorporated as a nonprofit in the US. We had an official board of directors. And then come January 2023, under the project management and the leadership of Rhonda, we had a full-blown website. And that's where we are today. We're going strong. And that's the origin story. There's longer one online that's more in detail. And then we've expanded from just looking at Roe v. Wade and abortion care to 5 other causes, which includes racial justice, LGBTQ plus rights, which is certainly under fire in the US right now, and then hunger, homelessness, and environmental concerns.
Great. Well, Rhonda, well done on building out the idea of a fully fledged website.
Thank you still, Rhonda.
Oh, it was fun. It was fun.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is it works at both the association and the individual level. And it so enables people when they're going to a destination that they don't necessarily agree with the laws or something like that, which is really what we're talking about here. They can then make a donation. They have a structure in place so they can make a donation, or the organization itself can kind of make a donation as well, right? Is that how it works, Rhonda?
Yeah, I'd love to kind of take you through the nuts and bolts, which we had to do very carefully so that the website would actually function for our all volunteer or mostly volunteer organization. And so, yeah, the process really begins with social offset, finding and vetting nonprofits, charitable nonprofits that make an impact, make a social impact. And then event organizers come to us and they select from those 6 causes that Elena mentioned: racial justice, reproductive freedom, LGBTQ plus equality, environmental sustainability, housing security, hunger relief. They select from those causes first, and they can select 1 or all 6. We put a lot of importance and value on maintaining agency for every person at every point in the process. And then once they've done that, they also can either request or approve our recommendations for that pre-vetted charity in the local area of their event that aligns with that cause. Social Offset then builds and hosts a fundraising campaign. We provide the host with a custom web page where their prospective attendees and also on-site attendees can make offset donations in the months and weeks leading up to the event. We also leave that up for about 30 days after the event as well. And then the donor themselves is in the driver's seat from there, right? They select any of the options or none of the options, as many as they like, and they make a contribution. We make recommendations for how they can calculate how much to give, right? That's a question that folks have. But of course, again, it's any amount. Anyone who works with nonprofits knows any amount is the right amount. And so we make recommendations, but again, the donor maintains that agency. And after the campaign closes, we send checks out to charities, which is great. And we help organizations tell that story. To start a campaign, Social Offset does charge a fee. So that's important, I think, for everyone watching to know. But it's a really reasonable fee, $750 for nonprofits, $1,500 for for-profit corporations and other businesses. And if there is anyone who is challenged by our fee structure, we invite them to contact us and have a conversation, because we really want to make this kind of tool accessible to everyone who needs it. Last thing I'll mention on how it works is that there's a donor dashboard, because of course donors need receipts and tax forms when it comes tax time, which just passed. So that's another exciting tool that we facilitate through the website.
And we give 100% of their donation because of that structure that Rhonda said. So Miguel, if you went to a site and you said, I want to donate $25, $25 goes to that charity. We don't take anything off, and that's because of our structure, so we can support all of the fees, and 100% goes.
So that small fee is the organizer that pays, right? So depending on the type of organizer. And so from the user perspective, I'm just trying to think it through. So I'm registering for an event. It is in a location that I don't necessarily agree with the politics. And so at some point during the registration or like on the website, I will come across the social offset button or form or kind of way of going and making that donation. And what I end up seeing is a sort of a curated selection of charities that I can donate to, that you've helped that organization kind of find and vet and kind of make it easy for you to make a difference when you're kind of going into that destination. Am I reading that right?
100%.
Exactly right.
And it's super easy, like literally, the QR code that you're going to see, or the link, and you're going to see it hopefully on site. You click, you see a page. It has the meeting's name, the charities. One click, you would click, donate now. And then there's a page, you fill in your information, how much you want to donate, and you click one more time. So 2 clicks, and then you're done.
It sounds great. Congratulations on, I think, a really interesting concept and actually bringing it to life. I'm sure you have big plans for it, but I noticed that you also partner with a lot of destinations. I wondered if, Elaine, if you could talk about that a little bit, because they're not part of this model, right? But they also have a fee. What do you what's the objective there, and how does that work?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we rely on those to finance the backbone, right? The accounting, the legal, the website, the hosting, all of that. So we ask our cities to partner with us. And that's, we have three main audiences: the event organizers who are saying, hey, I might be going to a place. How can I make sure that our attendees know that we understand what they're doing? So they create a page with us, similar to what Rhonda said, exactly what Rhonda said. The second group or the attendees who are going, who want to donate. And that third major audience are the destinations who are like, oh, we know about these silent boycotts. How can we tell our organizers we understand what they're dealing with? So they say, hey, we want to partner with Social Offset. And there's 2 sponsorship levels. All of this is online, and they come and they can sponsor us, and they get a page and they have a picture of their CEO, and they answer the question, why do we partner with Social Offset? So they can explain that. And then what we're finding is what they do for many of these DMOs, and we have over 10 of them, they put it in their pitch decks. So when they're pitching to an event organizer, they're like, we hear you. We partner with Social Offset. We can put you in contact with them. Some of them have complimentary event pages that they can say, hey, take this complimentary event page, go ahead, set up a page for yourself. So it's part of our business model, and it allows the whole ecosystem, right, which is attendee, organizer, and location, to come together on one platform.
One question I had there, are the destinations that partner with you, or the ones that maybe want to partner with you, do they tend to be more the destinations that have issues and want to bring in Social Offset to offset those issues in a way? Or are they more destinations that tend to be popular, among, don't have necessarily political issues, but also just want to use your services to vet charities, etc.?
Both, right? So what we're seeing is the Austins and the Orlandos of the world, but we're also seeing Seattle and Baltimore. And I won't mention who we just had a call with yesterday, but, and Dallas, and all of these folks coming together. So I think no matter where they are, they want to make sure that they're telling the meeting organizers out there and the attendees, we hear the challenge. We hear that it's so messy. We believe in in-person events. Please come to here. And let's leave this location, our location. They live in their location, right? The destination people are better off because of the attendees coming to us.
Great. And to wrap up, Rhonda, plans for the future. What does this look like? Is it 100, 200 destinations? Is it every event? What are you thinking?
Listen, I think there's lots of hopes and dreams for the future. Right now, what we're seeing is a great startup period. And I don't want to get too far ahead of that. And we're figuring out what impact looks like, what partners, destination partners, and other types of partners need. We've already hit in 4 months the level of engagement that we had for the full 12 months preceding in 2023. So that's really exciting. So I think one of the things we see in the future is sustaining that growth and staying lockstep in alignment with the needs. In terms of other, wish list kinds of aspirations, I know there are a few things I would mention. Other partner types. So Elena mentioned, the destination partner, that is the partner who had the most acute need for tools and ways to support their clients, right? But in addition to that, there's convention centers and hotels and other event venues that we're thinking about who also have lots of clients in this space, but aren't necessarily a destination, organization specifically. An exciting one for me, given my role with the Speakers Bureau at Flock Theory, is thinking about the role of professional speakers, celebrities, and other entertainers that we bring to our events and that go to hundreds of events a year, especially when they're on tour. And then, of course, there's also the private sector companies and suppliers to think about as well. Again, just tapping into the full ecosystem of the live events industry. Another thing on the wish list is more technology, better tech, right? We, as Elena mentioned, we had a minimum viable product that we needed to stand up and get out into the market, prove the concept. We have. and now thinking about how we will find the resources to fund better technology enablement. Right, what that could look like someday in the far future, right, is when anyone travels for business or leisure to a destination where they want to engage and bring their social impact values with them. That social offset is a tool, maybe an app right on their phone where they can do that easily. Whether or not there's an event campaign going on or not, we could dream of a future, right, where this is baked into how we show up when we travel.
Perfect. Well, that's a perfect place to end. Thank you both for your time today, and congratulations on building and supporting a product and a service that is non-divisive, right? That's bringing people together as they travel around for this wonderful world of business events. Thank you both for your time, and wish you lots of success with Social Offset.
Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you. Yeah, this is
Thanks
great.
everyone for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Introducing Stephen Fraser, founder and coach at Fit Principle.
Hey there, my name is Stephen from the Fit Principle, and this is Louis. He's back by popular demand, and we're going to take you through a very quick 5-minute movement routine just to help aid a little bit of movement throughout your day and concentration for the second half of your seminar. Okay, so we're going to start from the top down. We're going to start with the neck and just go for some semicircles. So we're going to go from semicircles from, let's go from the left to the right. So just nice control. We're going to go along the bottom, good bit of control, all the way to just to the other side. And then we're going to go back, round to the other side. Good, so that's 1 rep. We're going to do it 5 in total. 2. Good. 3. Oh, he's off. Clearly didn't pay his agent too much. Good. Okay, so from here we're going to go up and down. So again, nice bit of control. Up, down, 2. Good. This is the 3rd rep. 3. 4 and 5. Good. So for the next part, just kind of, if you're sat at a desk, just pull that chair back a little bit. Have a little bit of room in front of you. Okay, so we're going to go for some low to high reaches. So for this, we're just coming down and then we're just driving back up. Nice bit of control. Lift those hands above the head if you're in a space that allows you to. 2. Basically working in flexion in the spine here. So we want a nice bit of movement. 3, 4, good, 1 more. 5. Okay, so that is flexion, forward and back. Now we're going to go side to side. So a little bit of thoracic rotation. So nice bit of control. If you want to intensify that stretch, then pop your forearm on the outside of your knee. Get a nice little twist. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we're starting to work down the body. We're going to look into the hips. So again, if you've got some room, bring one leg over onto the knee. If that is tricky to get into this position, then we can just keep it a little bit lower. So from here, we're looking to rotate into the knee, which is up in the top, okay? So we're going to scoop around, nice bit of control. 1, 2, again 5 reps each side. 3, 4. Should really feel this on the outside of that bent leg. 5. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So if you can get up here, then great. This time I'll do it from the shin. So nice bit of control, rotating around. You might find the intensity is not as much in the kind of the glute of the leg on top. That's okay. 4 and 5. Okay, super easy. Couple exercises. If you incorporate that into your day outside of here, a little bit, 5 minutes, that's all you need. Get get the body moving, and perfect. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Please welcome Stuart Ruffline, Chief Events and Sales Officer at RIMS, the Risk and Insurance Management Society, in conversation with Andrea Doyle, Executive Editor at Skiff Meetings.
Hi, Stuart. Thrilled to be joined by you today.
Good day to you. Happy to see you.
You as well. Before we get started, a huge congratulations because you were just named PCMA's Business Event Strategist of the Year, which is such a wonderful award. So I wanted to wish you a congratulations. So
Thank you.
we are going to talk about the conference that just wrapped up in San Diego and what made that conference so interesting and why you had so much extra security in place is because last year when you were in Atlanta, there was an active shooter the final day of the conference. Can you just explain a bit about what happened?
Yeah, sure. So the last day of our conference in Atlanta in 23, exhibit hall closed. We're on getting ready for our finale productions. We're in rehearsals, as a matter of fact. And then we get notified there's an active shooter that's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the center that ultimately shut down 4 hotels, 2 shuttle bus routes, and forced us to cancel our conference finale and closing party because the assailant was at large for like 8 hours or something like that total. So we lived through a lot of things. Our CEO, Gary LeBranch, like totally just mastered this whole thing for us. And we really worked together under his direction to build new and better plans and to really examine everything we did in 2023, even going minute by minute to the communications responses and everything and how we handled everything that resulted in some enhanced security measures for Risk World 24 in San Diego.
And I talked to Gary about that as well. And he explained that you had an emergency plan in place, but it really focused on the convention center. So one of the goals was to have a plan in place that was more citywide. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The previous plan that we did, and we were very, honestly, I was for a risk management association such as RIMS, like I was always very incredibly impressed since I was working there about how buttoned up we were on event security more than other associations. And even now it's gone to a whole different level. But we had a 72-page plan that took into account everything you could imagine for a convention center crisis, but it never stopped to consider what would happen if something impacted the hotel routes or, the shut down hotels 2 miles away, active shooter, whatever it may be, and the destination. So that was one of the huge lessons we learned and wanted to carry forward to have more knowledge, more contacts, more planning in place for a full citywide activation such as Risk World.
Okay. And fast forward to just a few weeks ago, you wrapped your San Diego convention and you did have extra security in place. Can you explain?
Sure. We actually worked with an outside firm called Merrill Herzog, and they run Formula One and several large music festival event security plans. So we worked with them to really sort of beef up our existing plans and to make better connections throughout the city and really have that dedicated focus outside layer to event security, because obviously internally we can't manage that to the degree we would want to with a staff of 50 or so, right? So working with them really helped to create a new plan that was we implemented. We had all kinds of new elements to Risk World. I'm not sure if you want me to dive into that now, but tons of new security enhancements and measures and practices that were put into place. And it was really great to have their support and their knowledge on things to help us, create something that was bigger, better, and more appropriate for a citywide convention.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that. But can you just tell us how big was this year's convention in San Diego? Was it a citywide?
It was a citywide. We had 34 hotels, and San Diego, a great destination, obviously great partner to RIMS and to Risk World. We had about 10,300 attendees. So we actually returned to pre-COVID numbers, which was very exciting for us this year. We were in San Diego in 2016 and we're like 9,800. So we're showing some growth there. So yeah, and we also had, we activated some outside spaces for our opening party and things like that. So it wasn't just the center, 34 hotels, the gas lamp block street party, and then hundreds of ICW events that took place.
Okay. So, I mean, it is a bit ironic that what happened last year in Atlanta happened during a conference of a group like yours that deals with risk.
Right.
And I mean, you've been so forthcoming with what you learned as a result of it, and I think it makes the industry better. Can you touch upon some of the security measures that were put in place? We also talked about a new security system from Israel called Gabriel.
That's right. Yes, Gabriel was brand new technology that, again, our CEO found. They were demonstrating it through a Lloyd's of London space to insurance companies, and it basically is a physical product. It's very virtual, but it's actually like a shield that we had in strategic places throughout the convention center, language around it. It was hooked up to Wi-Fi power and all that. And if you push that, it did an immediate activation in our command center that every camera would dedicate to that area, initiate an emergency response, whatever it may be. It had audio, video capability when somebody pushed it. But thankfully, nobody did push it for 2024. It was a great enhancement. In addition to that, for the security team leaders like myself and Gary, we had access from our phones to a virtual war room command center, if you will, that had access to the convention center cameras and things like that. So in the event that we couldn't be in person for whatever reason, Gabriel gave us the power to do that and see things without being physically together.
And will this be technology that you'll include in all your future conventions?
We definitely want to. We're talking about 2025 measures now. It's actually something I think that, frankly, I think buildings and venues should take a look at in their own spaces. They have their command centers already and their cameras and everything, right? But I think it would be great addition and enhancement to venues as they look forward to the future and better risk management practices in their buildings for events.
So you brought this technology into San Diego Convention Center during your event.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And you also explained to me that you only had one set of doors open as another security measure. Can you explain?
That's right. Convention centers in general, they're obviously designed, they're public buildings. They're designed to be hopefully welcoming places and getting people in the doors, right? So there's a lot of entrances, but we figured out after last year, we couldn't really control who was entering the building. We want to know who was in there at any given time. They must be badged for the show, must have the emergency contact information. So we limited access to the San Diego Convention Center down to one set of doors, the lobby D area over there. And the other doors were all, you could exit, but we had security to every single one. If somebody tried to enter, they were pushed to the lobby D entrance, where we also added this year the metal detection as well as bag searches took place as people arrived.
Okay. And you had this amazing celebration in the Gaslamp open air, outdoor event. How did you make sure your attendees were safe during that?
Interestingly enough, we had never involved any kind of security company or security plan into that particular event in the past. It's a lot of contractual risk transfer, third parties doing things, right? But this time we actually, with the help of Merrill Herzog and Dupree Security, our other security firm that I forgot to mention earlier, really stepped that up in conversations with the venues, the vendors, how things were going to be running for security that evening. And it all worked out well in the end. We even had, we went so far as to place people strategically on rooftops for aerial views of things to see what was going on. And it is a badged event, which helps because we know that once they've received that badge that afternoon, then they already went through a security screening and had their bag searched and things like that.
And I mean, sadly, I believe this is our new normal, that you need to have security like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I was having this conversation. I mean, I can't think of many places you can walk in. I mean, some conventions could have 50,000 plus people under one roof, and there's still no security element to access it in a lot of these conventions, right? And to me, that represents a big risk, I think, to the convention industry in terms of safety and security.
Right. And just to emphasize, that shooting in Atlanta had nothing to do with your conference.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It just happened to be a random act of violence that was happening. And, the sad thing is, and Gary's always good about reminding people of this, it, as much as it impacted Riskworld and our plans that day, I mean, one person did lose their life, right? So it really always remember that and recall the fact that, as much as we were impacted, somebody did lose their life, right? And it was a really tragic incident for all those people that were involved. But, we learned so many other lessons from that too. I mean, for example, we were trying to communicate with people last year very quickly as to what was happening. And,
Right.
in this day and age, people know things before you do, thanks to social media and things coming out on the phone, right? So it's a very, very things coming at you just so fast and furious, and trying to be with the right people and have the right information coming in was actually very paramount. But when we wanted to communicate to our attendees, we realized the mobile app was our system for doing that, but then only half the people had the app downloaded. And half of those may have had the notifications turned off, so we're not even sure. So actually, it was Gary on the fly there in this situation. We were able to activate all digital signage in the Atlanta Convention Center and start putting emergency messaging on there that was consistent, right? So, and then based on that lesson for 24, we collected all cell phone numbers, and we had multiple ways of mass texting people in the event of an emergency.
And last year, because of the issue with not having cell phone numbers, didn't you also have to create a really quick video?
We did last year. We were in our rehearsal, like I said, for our finale production, and really quickly, because it is the risk management community, and we want to make sure they're aware that how we're managing the risk as best possibly can. But also we know that the rest of our membership would be concerned. So we recorded a video of Gary giving a message and updating what was happening. It was immediately placed on the RIMS website, and I believe also emailed out to members and to conference attendees as well. So just, we learned a lot of lessons based on doing those new things on the fly that weren't necessarily part of our plan in 23. So all that was updated for 24 for sure.
And a lot of the security measures you implemented in San Diego will continue for next year's conference?
I think absolutely. Excuse me. One of the things we did differently this year as well was that we did staff training before, obviously, on the security plan and what was happening. But this year we opened it up to all of our key vendor partners and even the city partners, right? So Merrill Herzog and Dupree Security and RIMS staff led everyone through. Here's what the security plan looks like. Here's what to do in the event of an emergency. Here's where this is located. Really trying to involve more people than just the staff, those frontline people who are part of the extended RIMS family, if you will, when we're executing large scale events. So that was something new that we're definitely going to continue as well. And also added this year too was a daily security briefing that took place every day amongst the key staff and security, just to kind of review the events of the day, what the risks were for any various keynotes, whatever it may be. And those were definitely great enhancements and very much good risk management strategies as we look to future events.
I mean, it's an unfortunate situation that happened, but I think it's commendable that you've used it as a learning opportunity, not only for your organization, but for the industry as a whole. Right. Aren't you partnering with ASAE?
RIMS is partnering. Yes, okay. Actually, that's Gary's pet project, and Gary's so passionate about risk management and really having safe events. But RIMS is partnering with ASIS and ASAE to deliver a new event management risk management toolkit for events that will debut in August at the ASAE conference. So I don't want to give anything too much away about that because the big debut is coming up, but I think it's going to at least give event professionals and our vendor supplier partner friends at least an opportunity to really sort of look at the event and the checklist and the toolkits that are available there and really start to think about event security in a different way and what the responsibility looks like to take on that piece of work.
Okay. One of our audience members asked if you could repeat the supplier partner you worked with in San Diego to amplify your security plan.
Sure, no problem. It's Merrill, MERRILL, Herzog, HERZOG. And in addition to that, we also work with Dupree, DUPREE Security.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have. It's always such a pleasure to chat with you, Stuart.
Yeah.
And we'll keep the conversation going via SCIF meetings.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thanks for having me today. Thanks, everyone at home.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Please welcome Kelly Sailing, Senior Vice President and Chief Sales Officer at Visit Seattle, in conversation with Angela Tupper, Branded Content Editor at SCIF Meetings.
Hi again. I hope you're all as excited as I am for this talk with Kelly Sailing, VP and Chief Sales Officer for Visit Seattle. We're going to dive into a principle of meeting design that has become the holy grail in recent years, and that is intentionality. What does it mean, and how can meeting planners get better at it? But before I launch into my questions for Kelly, I want to remind the audience that we want to hear from you. Let us know what you think in the chat and post your questions in the Q&A tab. So Kelly, let's start from the ground up. How can a meetings host city provide the foundation for intentional meeting design? Oh.
Angela, here, are we there?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
I wasn't sure it was my audio. I was like, I can't hear her.
No. Good morning from the West Coast. I think I was just saying that I think it's really our job to give people experiences that are memorable. They have a sense of place and they feel like they've been there. And that's certainly what we want to show off. We're proud of our city, of our destination, and we want to make sure that the sense of place is incorporated actually at every level so that they remember this and are able to distinguish it properly from other experiences and other conferences.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what about, the sort of philosophy that grounds the city, the values? How do those influence this whole idea of intentional meeting design?
Yeah, we really believe in the whole person and really being able to be who you are and where you are when that happens. And I think about everybody's at sort of a different place. We're at different time zones right now. You're at your second or third cup of coffee. I'm on my first, whatever that looks like. And it's our value to really honor the whole person and meet them where they are. And that means creating experiences that allow them to exist, not just fully plugged into a conference like they don't have a life, and also not having to sort of sacrifice between the two. It's time for you to call your kids. It's time for you to tune into something in the office, whatever that looks like. And it's our hope to really encourage that throughout the conference and also throughout the times in between.
Yeah, I mean, those are really great points. You have to think about the entire person and not just what they're doing for the event itself, but their whole lives and how that can fit into the agenda. What about the sort of larger city, the DEI record, all of those things? How does that factor into intentional meeting design?
Sure. It's the same honoring that we want to be welcoming to all people and cultures and where they are and who they are. We want to show off some of our brightest spots and encourage some of our best connections to our marginalized communities and really get to highlight what makes cities special, which is often those businesses and opportunities to sort of lean into what it is that makes that city tick. So we are at the forefront of really ensuring that we're referring what is customized to this city, but what is also customized to what the group and the planner really represents that their attendees want. Are they students? Do they really want to lean into the LGBTQIA sphere? Are they vegans? Are they wanting to explore our native culture? What is it, and how can we connect that the best way?
I love that. It's about respecting the individual, but also thinking about what's individual about the city, what's unique to the city, and kind of marrying those two things. How can meeting planners ensure that they're really tapping into this potential?
Sure. Well, we think use of a DMO is the number one thing for that. I was just looking at something earlier this week where our convention services team designed a map from the headquarter hotels to the convention center, really highlighting truly vegan restaurants for students. So they were like sort of lower price point vegan restaurants to refer them along the walking route. And those are real examples of things that we do daily to ensure that people have the best connections in the city. And we want to make sure there's all kinds of things represented, but also the more information we have about who the group is, what their needs are, the more of a curated selection that we can really help. And that's the start of the DMO, is really unlocking the magic of what you can have when you're in a destination.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they say you can't really say you've been somewhere if you've just been to the airport. How do you think that philosophy translates to meeting design?
Yeah, my brother and I used to argue about that as kids. It was like, we would count our states or cities, and it was like, if you only went to the airport or if you only slept at the hotel but you didn't do anything the next day, we had all kinds of rules. And that's definitely the case here. There are cities many of us, many places that we go to where you land and it's dark and you go to your hotel and you do your conference and then you leave again in the dark and you never even went outside. And you don't really get to experience what that place has to offer. And that's a bummer. And so it's all of our job to sort of work harder on that. But it's also the opportunity that presents itself with meetings and conventions for the planning community to lean into creating those opportunities. And that's where we want to connect, not to take away from content that needs to happen, but to recognize that that content is actually absorbed in a much better way when you remember where the heck you were. Right. And you can pinpoint how, the air when you were walking to that session, or the coffee shop that you stopped along the way, the people that you ran into on the streets to, go sit with at the session. Those are all the things that really anchor the content. And that's the part that is the sense of place.
Yeah. And I think we have a picture now of Summit, your convention center, one of your convention centers up on the screen right now.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how convention center design fits into this picture? You were saying, sometimes you're just in this dark room and you never see the city. How can a convention center kind of help to break that cycle?
Sure. We're really fortunate. The architects, which are Seattle-based architects, really worked for a decade in advance of constructing this facility, going to conferences. So they attended many of our large industry conferences and many small industry conferences to sort of understand what would make this experience better and really honor that whole person, which is something that really is in the fabric of this city. And in this case, what they found is it's not just the content, it's the connection. So this particular building, Summit, has a staircase that is spectacular. It's this windowed, fully surrounded area of these beautiful wood stairs, but it's not just about getting people from one place to another. It's not just a sort of corridor. It's about, you can actually take a meeting from there. That's actually a meet up spot. That's a place that you can, as an introvert, sort of go take a minute and regroup a little bit to be able to get your gregarious back and get back into the conference. And that's the point of these spaces, is not just to transport you from one spot to another, but to ensure that you're experiencing and able to be your human, whatever that looks like for you. So it's pretty spectacular. The bulk of the space in this building is really in these shared spaces and corridors that don't just make you feel sort of windowless ballroom in the basement.
Yeah, I mean, from this exterior shot, we can really see, the windows all around it, and it's right in the center of Seattle. So
stunning.
Yeah, amazing. What about some of the minority-owned small businesses that you mentioned earlier, or organizations within the city? Can you tell me a little bit more about how planners can take advantage of that, or how your DMO could help to coordinate those connections?
Sure. We've set up speaking opportunities for this really incredible woman business leader in our community. Her name's Colleen Echo Hawk. She's with 8th Generation, which is a Native-owned store in our Pike Place market. And she gets to sort of better tell the story of the Native community and the lands that we are on here in Seattle. We have bags that we've had customers give, but also we've given as conference welcome gifts from a refugee artisan initiative. We've got these really cool cookies from a place called Bite Society. These are all either LGBTQIA or BIPOC owned businesses. And often that's the surprise and delight. That's the sprinkle that people are really remembering. Like, how does a cookie change your life? Well, it can. And this is the business owner that helps package it in this incredible sort of tattooed vessel that makes you remember that, like, that cookie is different, and she's a woman-owned business, and it's memorable.
I love that. Can you give me some other examples of what intentional design looks like in practice? Should we be cranking up the Enya during breaks, or how else can we incorporate intentional elements into offsite activities and that kind of thing?
Sure. I think it's about the design, not only from a timing standpoint. I think about when I screw up packing and I pack the wrong gear because I think it's going to be hot or cold and it's not, and you'd think I'd nail it at this point, but I don't. So you need to run to Nordstrom for some pants or a scarf or a new jacket. I think that telling people where those things are so they can go get that emergency from the local pharmacy, all of those pieces are really intentional. Also, there's things like city trivia. So if you're boarding a bus to go to an offsite, why wouldn't you want to sort of like have some fun trivia along the way to learn about something and be silly with prizes? There's all kinds of curated things that we can connect people to that allow it to really be intentional. And it doesn't just have to have sort of this spa Enya vibe. It's really about honoring how you can exist, even though you're not at home and you're not plugged into what is your typical life. Sometimes it feels like it. You're only on the road, but it's honoring you the entire time.
That's such a great point. You know, getting from A to B doesn't have to be just getting from A to B. You can use that as an opportunity to kind of connect with the city more on a bus tour, or maybe even a boat tour. You know, taking advantage of Seattle's waterfront. What about some team building or networking exercises that help to connect people to the city, or even venues within the city that you can maybe take better advantage of to treat them into kind of turn them into a full city experience?
I've been at Visit Seattle for 15 years, and one of my favorite things that we did, I think it was about 12 years ago, was crack the code on using our Seattle Center for what ultimately was sort of a festival-style networking event. So Seattle Center is a 50-plus acre campus in the city where the Space Needle is, and we were able to use the venues, what is now Climate Pledge Arena, and Mopop, which is an awesome music venue and pop culture. And then the Space Needle, Chihuly Garden and Glass, even before it was around, to use these pieces to really feel like not only have you been to Seattle, but you're at this iconic place with these unbelievable icons and museums, but you can stay in the one that you are most drawn to. You're a super big glass art fan, or you are really wanting to geek out on some Nirvana, whatever that is. There's also outdoor space, and you just needed to get some fresh air. Those are all pieces that the venues can lean in, and we get to recommend those, knowing from experience how that best can work. This is another spot in the city where there's a park at the far spot there, where the same thing, you can be at the park and also at one of our museums and really have a curated experience. It's the Museum of History and Industry. And you can learn about some of, Boeing that started here, and Microsoft, and what first computers and keyboards and all of those things looked like. It's pretty cool.
I love that. You're turning the city architecture and the whole structure of the neighborhoods into a story, a narrative about the history of that city.
And allowing people to do what they want to. It's not sort of everybody goes and does their thing. I think we all need a minute to be individuals.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a one size fits all thing, right? So I think that variety is so important there. And there's definitely an argument to be made for these kinds of experiences contributing to the wellness of attendees, simply by virtue of helping them to feel a sense of fulfillment and connection. But what about wellness in the more conventional sense? What advice would you give to planners looking to build some intentionally restorative moments into the agenda?
Well, I'd certainly give it to planners, but it's advice I need to take myself as well. We all just need the reminder to get outside and connect to nature. So, being in a place that maybe your headquarter hotel isn't connected and you get to go outside to the coffee shop, that's a reminder to do it, right? We don't have to get sort of stuck inside. And this is a city that really gets to shine in that space. We've got waterfront, like you mentioned, and we are really surrounded by incredible national parks and mountains, that vistas that you're going to miss if you stay inside. So I think that's a huge part, is allowing people a minute to go outside. I've been taking the opportunity at recent places I've been to go walk around the block. And, it's a 15-minute session, and maybe it's your networking time, maybe whatever it is, but it's like, go grab an iced tea, walk around the block, and see that's the street that's most active right now. And, oh, hey, it's lunchtime, and here's what people do here at this plaza. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, never underestimate the healing power of nature, right?
Absolutely.
Especially when so many of us are usually tied to our screens all day. So we've touched on the overall atmosphere of the city, as well as some creative ideas for breakout sessions. Is there anything else to keep in mind when aiming to be more intentional with meeting design?
I just think that we need a broader definition, that everybody should remember intentionality really isn't, Enya, as you said, and it's not just ways to make sure that people are connected. It's like, if they're introverts, they need a minute. And it's creating opportunities and telling them where these gems are. Those are things that DMOs can do. They can put things into pockets of, like, if you have 15 minutes, what can you do? If you have 30 minutes, what can you do? And also, how long is it realistically going to take you when you need to just run back to your room and crank some things out? Those are things that help you feel prepared. And we all breathe a little deeper and sit up a little straighter when we think that we have it together and can maintain our lives on the road, which are often what these are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for teasing out all these different ways to rethink events with a more intentional mindset. If anyone from the audience wants to check it out, Kelly and her team helped us to produce a whole report on this topic, why intentionality is the future of meetings. And, one of the things we didn't get to talk about was sustainability, but I know, in conversation prior to this, we did talk about that a little bit. And I think intentionality and sustainability go hand in hand. And as it happens, that's the focus of our next talk. Thank you so much for joining us, Kelly, and stay tuned for sustainability.
Thanks, Angela.
Please welcome Shauna McKinley, Principal at Clear Current Consulting, and Guy Bigwood, Chief Changemaker and CEO at Global Destination Sustainability Movement, in conversation with Miguel Neves, Editor-in-Chief at Skift Meetings.
Hi, Shauna. Hi, Guy. Thank you for joining us today. How are you both?
Well, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Wanted to start not by revealing ages or anything like that, but just mentioning that you've both been talking about sustainability for a long time. And sustainability has been one of these topics that has been, in everybody's minds and sessions all around the world in industry events. But I wanted to get a sense from you of what's changed. We've been talking about this for 20, 25, 30 years. The conversations that you're having about sustainability today compared to the ones that you had when you first started. And I'll start with Guy, if you don't mind. What's changed?
What's changed? I don't know. I go through this motion of outrage and optimism. So, one day I'm super excited and optimistic because we have driven the price point down of sustainable materials. We are able to do signage. We are able to get more local food. We are able to recycle our waste better. And you think, wow, that's fantastic. And we can do that at a good price point. And then other days, we can't get any of it right. We can't even recycle. We're putting water in every plastic bottle and throwing that away. And we're just really suffering. So I kind of move between those points.
And Shauna, are you having different conversations today?
Yeah, I can relate a lot personally to what Guy said. I think what's really exciting is there's more people in the arena today, as opposed to when Guy and I got started and you're sort of there in the fringe. This movement has arrived and it is mainstream and people are talking about it, and it's the issue that's top of mind for everyone. But if I put my sustainability manager and carbon accountant hat on, I have to look toward results and what type of credible action are we taking and how can we measure our impact and are we making progress? I think that's the key question. And if we look at some of the targets and pledges that we're making to reduce emissions by 50% by 2030, we're not quite there yet. So it's good that there's all hands on deck right now because we need all the help we can get and more ambition and to pick up the pace.
You would have loved it last week, Shauna, at IMEX when we first started at IMEX there. Our first session, we had 3 people in our session. And and this time there was about 30, 40 sessions on sustainability. And each one of those was packed. So, there is, as you said, that attention's grown, but action is still falling back.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So wanted to jump to the work that you've been doing, Shauna. You did a report called Extreme Weather and Event Planning Risks in Canada, an overview of impacts and organizer perspectives covering 72 unique events that were disrupted by heat, wildfire, flooding, cold and storms in Canada in 2023. I'm going to say most of these, 74%, were disrupted by wildfire and smoke, but it's still a really drastic example of climate change. And you've really tracked all of these in Canada. Very impressive report. How did that come? How did you get there?
Yeah, people have interesting hobbies, right? So I teach sustainability to event management students, and we have a lesson in my course where we look at the connection between climate change, extreme weather, and risk management. So we're always looking at case studies and doing that term in and term out. I just sort of collect these examples, and it seemed to me like we constantly get reshocked. It's like something happened. The rains in the UAE last month, where we had 3, I think, conference events that were disrupted by that situation. And we're concerned, and we talk about the climate connection and are we adapting? And then we just sort of move on. And I really felt this sense, particularly because I'm working in a teaching environment, to really understand the problem. Because until we understand the problem and how it's changing, it's hard to know how to adapt, to be more resilient. And that's why the media monitoring that I was doing over the last year, combined with the organizer interviews, were really important, because I think there's people on the front lines. And in Canada, one of the shocking things that I learned was 6 of the last 8 years in my home province, we've had events disrupted by flood, by heat, by smoke, by fire, by warmer winter temperatures. And it's really throwing curveballs. It's adding a lot of stress to an already stressful situation. So that report for Canada is now out. It gives us a snapshot of what happened last year, and wildfire was extreme. But in previous years, we found that's not the case. It's flooding, and there's been more impact on business events in previous years. So now the challenge is, and I'm working with 3 other researchers to map the risks globally, because everyone always asks, well, what about the US and Australia and Europe? So we are working at getting there, and I hope we'll have updates in the next few months.
Looking forward to it, and very valuable to have that information. So thank you for doing that work. Guy, one of the things that we keep talking about, and I know you were part of a conference that had an elephant in the room, so to speak, this idea that international events promote long-haul flights, and they're the largest contributor to an event's carbon footprint. But yet it doesn't seem like the industry is really willing to not promote international travel. How do we make sure that events are really worthy of this high carbon cost that is that international travel?
That is the elephant in the room, right? Especially after COVID, we've seen how better live events are than typically meeting online, or how they play their part. So I don't know about you, but I kind of hoped that after COVID, when we came back, our meetings would be better. Instead, we're kind of focusing on more versus better meetings. And it goes back to the basics. Unless a business event delivers an outcome, or unless any event delivers an outcome, it shouldn't be held, I think. And so we should be focused on more, going back to what Kelly said before, more intentional event design, really focusing on using event to drive business, environmental, and social impacts. That's the basics. It's not complicated, but we do it so badly in general in this industry. That's the first start.
Shauna, your thoughts on that? I know it's a loaded question, but I just wanted to check that we are actually checking in on that, because it seems like that is the one thing that's still going to keep our carbon very high, right?
It's interesting. Last week, there was a working paper that was released that focused on something called the social cost of carbon, which is essentially a way that we estimate all of the impact of pollution that is external. We externalize, right? It costs us in terms of healthcare and infrastructure damage and things like that. And the paper estimated that the social cost of carbon is about $1,000 per metric ton. And if we just think of what would happen in terms of a shift in thinking if we had that as a shadow line item in a budget. So all of a sudden, each attendee, we actually start to price for that cost that everyone else bears, and therefore also incentivize really deeply the reductions that can happen when we curb food waste, when we pick a destination that uses green power or an energy efficient hotel, and sort of reduce some of that shadow cost that everyone else is bearing. And I think transportation then becomes much more visible as something that we need to action as a top priority.
But it will question. It questions our industry. I mean, as we are being questioned, I think our colleagues who work in the incentive industry are in a difficult place at the moment. Is it incentive to fly someone across the world for 3 days? Is that an incentive for some people? Definitely not for some people. And many incentive companies are really suffering now and seeing that decline. Whereas we had IMEX last week. I mean, how many meetings did we do? Every 30 minutes was another meeting, right? We whacked that week full. Because of those meetings, there would be a lot of positive outcome and regeneration happen in many different places around the world, many industries. So, there is a balance.
Yeah, I just filled out the IMEX survey after being there last week, and a lot of it was focused on how much you reduced your carbon footprint by having those meetings at IMEX, which I think is a very interesting way to look at it, right? And then hopefully that does make sense. Now, Shauna, I know you've also been you've talked about helping destinations manage climate disruptions. What kind of things are you seeing that destinations are trying to do when they're kind of mitigating these climate disruptions?
Well, I think the first thing is really tapping into what climate projections exist for your region, because usually there are organizations doing projections. In Vancouver, for example, we have projections that are updated on a regular basis. They tell us things like we can expect 16 times more extreme heat days in the city and 60% less snowfall in the winter. So that kind of information, I think, is really helpful as we look towards future positioning and also future emergency response as destinations, because what does that mean for the products we sell if we're no longer a winter sports destination, or we can't host activities that have that as the basis of the attraction, or our summer festivals move to different times of the year and our peak season shifts. That climate information is really helpful intelligence and can help us prepare as a foundation. What we find in Canada is really interesting is destinations right now are establishing positions and programs that are really about climate adaptation. And that's a pretty fundamental shift in what's been in our something that's been outside of our wheelhouse. And now it's starting to come and emerge as a role that we play. And I think that speaks to the challenge of high carbon travel. It speaks to extreme weather. It speaks to some of the pushback that I think residents sometimes give us about the downsides of tourism, because climate adaptation can really become a centering point where we focus in on how travel and tourism and destinations can help by promoting climate investments, for example, as an alternative to offsetting when business events are hosted.
Very interesting. Now, Guy, I know you're the CEO and Chief Changemaker at the Global Destination Sustainability Movement, and you release an index every year that ranks destinations on sustainability efforts. And a lot of what we're talking about is already part of that. Is this element of competition really important to make kind of destinations listen and try to offer more sustainable transportation, things like that?
The index and the 100 cities that participate in it at the moment plays with two concepts: collaboration and competition. We compete the friendly competition, which is sometimes even a bit more friendly, to boost up the ranking, but that gains attention. It gathers people around an objective to get better. So then the index is then firmly around how do we get better? How do we share the learning amongst all of the cities? So it's a really fine balance between this competitive and collaborative nature. And we've seen it works. It makes a difference. We rolled it out to 20 destinations across Canada. And as Shauna would have seen, it's really transformed the amount of energy focused on sustainability across Canada. And it's bringing everything in from climate strategies to inclusivity to DEI to resilience and many other things. And so I believe it's a winning formula to play with that competitive nature. Competition against ourselves, not only against other cities and your peers.
Great. And we have to wrap up soon, but I have one last question. We have a lot of sustainability focused on reporting, or reporting is a very important part of sustainability. We have in the EU CSRD coming in now and making that a requirement for a lot of corporations, etc. And that's going to be spreading out across the EU for different sizes of corporations soon. Want to kind of just look into the future and just get a short take from both of you in terms of what's looking bright ahead for destinations and anybody in the industry in terms of, are we doing better, and how are we looking to do things better? Because there's a lot of reporting. It seems quite heavy. It seems like a lot of work, but it has to be done. How do we make that easier for the destinations and the event managers out there? And I'll start with Shauna.
Well, I feel sort of mixed feelings about this stuff, because I think we need to embrace tools and technology to help make this easier. There's a lot of friction. It is complicated, and you feel like you need to hire a consultant to sort of map the landscape for you. But it's an emergent reality that we have to prepare for. So technology tools and programs, initiatives like Guy really help to make the path a little easier. But I'll also say this about, all of this focus on reporting. What I find hopeful is that events are really designed to unlock our potential to solve tough problems, and technology isn't going to be a pathway to that. we have to connect people to collaborate, to deal with our own psychology about these things and our human intelligence and our relationship capital. So if events can really step into that space to sort of rise up to their potential and be acknowledged for the collaboration that they can further, I think that's a really exciting future for what we do. And we don't necessarily need a carbon calculator to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Great message. Guy, any words to add?
Well said. I think is one of the most interesting and fascinating things that are happening at the moment is not the legislation on reporting, it's the legislation on communication. We and every other industry, I think, has an issue around greenwashing. 90% of greenwashing is when actually people getting too excited about what they're doing and saying, we're the most sustainable destination in the world, we're the most sustainable event. There's new legislation coming in across the EU, Australia, elsewhere that will say any claim that you make has to be backed up. That's just been passed. Some of it comes into action in across Europe and the world in March of 2026, and then after another level. To satisfy that legislation, and this will affect pretty much every business in the world who focuses on EU citizens, which is pretty much every destination in the world. They will need data. They will need reporting data. They will need measurement data. So this has an interesting opportunity to not only catalyze how we communicate, but allow us to have better data that makes us make better decisions. And if you take that on top of that mindset shift that needs to happen that Sean was talking about, that's exciting. That's optimistic for me. That makes me wake up in the morning and think we're in the right direction.
Looking forward to better events and better communication, more honest communication about sustainability. So excellent messages to leave us with. Thank you, Shauna and Guy. And next, we're heading to Jamaica, where we're going to learn about one event that really made a big difference to the local community. So a great place to end our event today.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Please welcome Marie Hunter, Managing Director at IEEE, in conversation with Andrea Doyle, Executive Editor at Skift Meetings.
Hey there, Marie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Andrea. Nice to see you again.
And before we get started, a huge congratulations because you received quite the award last week at IMEX in Frankfurt for the Global Influencer Award from ICCA, and that's quite an award, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it really got me thinking about what does that mean? I think in today's sort of parlance, we would say, oh, she must be great at social media, but that's not really it. To me, the award really was talking about how we influence things, how we become an influencer. And I think that's a lot of that is about having a point of view and having a mission, and then you can become a trusted voice, and then in effect, you're an influencer. So it meant a lot to me, and it was very nice to be recognized. That's
wonderful. So I thought we should get started. Just can you explain a little bit about your organization?
Sure. IEEE is a membership organization with about 450,000 members around the world. And I am responsible for their conference and events business and the newly added experiences component of my work, which is still under construction, I would say, about all the different kinds of experiences that I'm cooking up. But we do conferences and events in about 100 different countries around the world, over 2,000 events a year. And we also work hand in hand with our publishing arm.
Okay. And you're the founder of the annual IEEE Convene.
I am. That's a meeting that we do. Really, I think of it in a way as a customer meeting, because like many associations, our events are organized by volunteer engineers. So with this kind of volume, I think it's important to gather people together and really bring in knowledge and expertise from the real world, shall I say, the world of conferences and events that we all live in. And it's not possible to bring together all of the organizers, which would be about 25,000 people when you think about it with the different organizing committees. So what we do is we bring in some organizers that have pending programs, people that are planning future programs, and all of our leadership. So that's a body of leaders, but it's a mashup with the entire ecosystem of our event industry. So it includes city destinations and hotels. It may include, depending upon the theme, it could include folks that are providing apps and tools and publishing tools. And we get together and talk about something usually under one theme.
Okay. So I had the pleasure of meeting you in Washington, D.C. at the ASAE headquarters. And you were talking about your initiative in Jamaica. And I was just so intrigued by it. I was hoping you could share a little bit about, you had a board of directors meeting in Montego Bay, but then you went on to Kingston.
So, really basically, coming out of the pandemic, I was really taking a good look at our live events business. We did well during the pandemic. We were able to sustain the business, and it was good. But then I was really considering, where are we going? And one of the things I asked the team for was a visualization of today, where we do our conferences. And what I was most interested in is where we don't do our conferences. And so I started honing in on these blank spots on the map where we're not as present for those communities as I would like us to be. And also really acknowledging that some of our most successful events are celebrating their 50th anniversary, their 75th anniversary. And so for some of these destinations, they're not likely to be successful in attracting those conferences. They're going to have to build their own. And so that's sort of a side mission that I'm on right now. And I started with Jamaica. And part of it was a confluence of understanding that our executive director is from Jamaica. And I thought this is a great opportunity to get the attention of some movers and shakers in technology in Jamaica. And so we started by placing the board of directors meeting in Montego Bay. And then at the request of our section, we say sections at IEEE, the section chair asked us if we could help them put together what they first billed as a member meeting in Kingston. And so we sort of took that request and this opportunity to try to get together the ecosystem there in Kingston to see who would it take to create a new event or an ongoing event, become sort of a dot on this map that I have, and how would we do that? And it was really at that point that we had the insight that in order to get a lot of folks to cooperate on going to this chapter, this section in Kingston, and beginning to plant the seeds of a conference, the real unifying principle was our mission. And so we really sort of transformed what was a run-of-the-mill section meeting into sort of being like a little, if you're familiar with the story of Johnny Appleseed, planting some seeds there and see how we could use this occasion to really get active in Kingston and get our chapter active.
Okay. And you did so much good by doing that.
Yeah. At Convene, sort of Convene ties into this because, as well as my background, as I love stories. I was an English major. And so oftentimes I'll use stories to make points, to explain things to people. And at Convene in 2023, I used the story of Stone Soup to explain to the people. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that story, but it's the idea that if everybody puts a little something in, we can create something that would benefit all. And so we did some exercises around that thinking at Convene. And then some of the people that went through that experience, I dragged right into my Kingston event. I said, what can you contribute? So we ended up having, first, of course, we had our section leadership. And then we were able to engage the university. Then we were able to engage a team of youngsters that had won an award in robotics, really doing it on their own, bootstrapping.
Wow.
And they agreed to come and share their project. And then the folks that helped me connect with them also knew the Minister of Education. So would you like her to come? Well, yes, I most certainly would. And then she was able to help us get a Minister of Energy, a Minister of Technology. Wow. And they all said yes, because it was either about connections that they could make or the students that they were trying to help. And all the requests were really mission-based. So then I pivoted back to my colleagues at IEEE, and I was able to say, hey, we've got this robotics team. We have a robotics and automation society. What can you guys kick in? Will you come and congratulate them? Can you give them an honorary membership? Can you inspire them? And they said yes. And then we were able to engage entrepreneurs locally, several companies. And it was all planned in about 6 weeks, I might add. It was
Wow.
But and then what I did is I hosted a dinner the night before, and I said, very informal dinner, would come and, just meet each other before the event. And it was electric because none of these people had ever met each other, except, I'm sure the ministers had met each other in different contexts. But for the minister to meet the folks that were organizing the robotics competition, to meet these entrepreneurs, and it really accelerated several different projects that are ongoing now.
And also, you ignited a love of technology and science in a lot of young people in Jamaica, didn't you?
It was amazing because they could really see people. It was all really about people that are in Jamaica for the most part. And so we were inviting people from different aspects of technology and education and entrepreneurism to meet at this place. And then the idea is sort of step out, like let them connect, let them start projects, and of course connect with IEEE and how can we facilitate it? Because we are a public charity and we're a mission-based organization. So facilitating these kind of activities is right on our mission. And it also helps us in that they are creating new conferences. There's going to be a conference there are going to be 3 conferences next year in Jamaica, none of which were on the radar prior. We've also in the process of opening up 3 new chapters in Jamaica. And we've already connected, particularly in our power and energy sector. We've arranged to do webinars right into their employee base from our Power and Electronics Society experts. We are including them in some of our largest and most successful conferences to talk about electrification of the grid and also get involved in their public policy and to hook up our global experts around the world with their team that's working on policy. And we have initiatives going on in communications and our electromedical BS, the sort of intersection between electricity, electronics, and biology. So those are all things that will bear fruit for many years. And I think the energy and the happiness that came from it is just remarkable. I mean, they're pinging me every day. Can we do this? Can we do that? And I'm trying to get them into structures where they can, request funds and have projects green lighted. And it's very exciting.
And didn't some of your members even actually give areas internet that didn't have any internet?
Well, not yet, but we discovered that some of the students that we were talking to, one of our volunteers did a really interesting talk. He took his cell phone out of his pocket, and then he was explaining to these kids, some of whom were 8th graders and some of whom were in high school. Some of them were in college, some of them were graduate students. He was explaining all the different technologies that go into a cell phone and how you find your way. And he's like, definitely you can ping me, you can do this. And then we realized they don't have cell phones, and in their schools don't even necessarily have internet. So we took away several different things, higher level projects that we might be able to work on. One is we have a whole group of volunteers and an entire ecosystem that's dedicated to, fairness in terms of access to technology and provision of the I forget what it's called exactly, but closing the digital divide, that kind of thing. And so we're going to pass it off to them to see, there's this area in Jamaica. Can we get the local communications company involved? Can we get this done? And you find out all these interesting local stories about why they have the issue and why it hasn't been solved. So we want to facilitate these things.
And it shows the power of meeting face to face and the difference you can make in people's lives.
That's one of the most exciting things for me. Like, I'm no spring chicken, and to see the evolution of our profession, to go from logistics and a checklist to where we really can be influencers, we really can direct social impact, we really can make change. It's amazing and it's exciting. And it doesn't mean that there aren't roles for everybody along the way. If people just want to do the logistics, there's always a need for that. But, I know other speakers are talking about social offsets and things like that. If you find yourself, in a situation where there's some challenges, but also we have the power to place meetings, right? So we don't always have to accept that this has to be placed in a controversial location. We can direct it to places that meet the same values, let's say. And by placing the meeting, we're participating in social impact, in economic development, in new business.
Right.
So, aligning with the strategy of your organization, your own personal values, it's very exciting.
And you usually look for destinations to meet in that truly can benefit from your business, don't you?
If I have that option, I really do. And I think this new approach, I don't know if it's the same for all the audience members, but I would often get requests regarding co-location.
Okay.
And co-location, as defined by the people that I've been dealing with these many years, is meeting right at your conference. Like, we're at your conference and we want to co-locate, meaning we're in a room down the hall, or we're right on top of you. And it's always been difficult to make those arrangements. And a lot of tension, because why we want these people in, it's not on our agenda or whatever. But this concept is not co-located, it's slightly adjacent. A few days later, a different city. But what it does is it allows people that potentially a location like Jamaica could not afford to fly in, it allows them to participate. So I'm really keen on this approach of setting up new meetings in locations where there's already a large confluence of people, and then curating out folks that would be for this other purpose. It makes it economically feasible. And it's, a real example is if I were to ask one of these people that came to the conference, would you mind donating $2,000 for some t-shirts? They would say no, and some did say no. But if I said, hey, would you come by and speak about the importance of giving back to the community or the importance of engaging youth? Oh, sure, no problem. And it would cost more than $2,000 for them to do this. So a lot of it is how you ask and how you approach it, and keeping that mission central to everybody. And, you cannot do this over the telephone. You're not going to build relationships the way we do at a dinner the night before a conference, or some sort of surprise that you could put into an event. So yeah, it's been terrific. I've got 10 emails from some of my new friends in Jamaica about new things that they want to do. And it's very rewarding personally.
Well, this is a great way to end this summit, because if everyone did what you're doing, the world would truly be a better place. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you're doing. And I thank everyone for tuning in today.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
And this concludes the Destination Experience Summit 2024. Let me do my best to connect the dots for you. And while I'm doing this, why not add your takeaways in the chat? Just let us know if you learned something new, if you thought something that we said or something that one of our guests said was interesting. Just drop that in the chat so everybody can learn from you as well. We started this event by learning from the DMCs, from two leading associations or agglomerations of DMCs about tight budgets, short timeframes, and the lack of qualified staff that's really holding a boom in the industry. We remain a seller's market, according to them, and that's not likely to change much anytime soon. And we learned that AI is now part of destination research, but it is unlikely to replace the human touch that DMCs offer. We went to Detroit. We talked about bringing its historic strength in the automotive industry to benefit events with a scientific and engineering focus. We talked about impressive property developments, iconic buildings, and plenty of culture, and that automotive industry really turning into the mobility industry, which is a fascinating development. We learned about social offset, the socially conscious alternative to event and destination boycotts. We talked about adding social values to destinations, and when selecting destinations, it can be really messy and associations are really all over the place, but data suggests that boycotts really are not the answer. And so we looked a little bit into this alternative. How do you make a difference at the destination that you might be considering going to, but maybe it doesn't align with your social values? And finding an opportunity to change people's minds, whether through cash, but also through education and through funding organizations that are doing that, is really the mission of Social Offset. We talked about risk management and the Risk Management Society's own event and how they really beefed up the risk assessment and the security at their event this year in San Diego. Additional security, emergencies buttons that are controlling a sort of control center for safety and security, new technology using there. And also Stuart reminded us that good communication is really important in times of danger, really. And having everybody's cell phone numbers is absolutely crucial, because relying on an app that's only downloaded by half of your attendees is really not enough. So important reminders there from Stuart Rufflines from RIMS. And then we went to Seattle, where we talked about intentional meeting design and respecting the individual, but remembering that what you learn is augmented by when you remember where you are. So having an iconic destination, meeting at an iconic destination that really makes you feel good can really help you make the most of meetings. Venues and settings that impact us really make a difference. And so this, when selecting destinations, is more important than ever. Sustainability, a conversation that we've been having for a long time, and we asked two experts how that conversation has really changed. We talked about the elephant in the room, the international travel that so many events are really promoting, and understanding what really makes an event worthwhile of that large carbon footprint that international travel has attached to it. The experts are hopeful that new legislation, new sustainability reporting, and particularly new communication directives will push the industry to the next level and will really remove some of the greenwashing and marketing around sustainability that's happening today that isn't necessarily accurate. And of course, last session we had there was about IEE, and the work that they're doing in Jamaica, a large association that has really an association's mission of planting seeds in different destinations, of helping with that education component, connecting the dots with different sections within IEEE, local organizations, making an important impact at the destination, something that a lot of destinations talk about. And it's really interesting to see an association really take that into their own hands. And now we have new chapters, new events happening in Jamaica, and that really makes it clear of the value of face-to-face meetings. So hope you enjoyed all those sessions. I don't see any comments yet in the chat, but if you have any takeaways that you'd like to add, please do add them in the chat. I'd like to first of all and last of all really say thank you for being with us today. We are sending out a short survey in an email in a few minutes. Please do take that survey. It does help us improve our events, make them better next time. We'll also add that link in the chat so you can go there quickly, but if you want to scan the QR code, do that. Of course, a quick reminder to subscribe to our newsletter, download our free reports, no cost to you if you're interested in any of these topics that we've covered. If you're on the supplier side, consider entering the Skift Meetings Awards. That deadline is approaching quickly, of June the 11th. And in September, we are heading to New York because we are holding our Skift Meetings event on September the 17th. And if you'd like to do that, please do join us. Consider joining us. The tickets are live on our website, and we'd love to see you there. And of course, thank you to our sponsors, Visit Detroit, Visit Seattle, and our event tech partner, Stova. So thank you very much for being with us today. And with that, I will say goodbye, and thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you again at our next summit coming up later in the year.